Hi, everyone, and welcome to FedScoop's Next Generation Workspaces panel presented by Cisco, Citrix, and NetApp. I am David Stegan, the reporter for FedScoop, and joining me here today is Jonathan Alboum, the Deputy CIO at GSA's Federal Acquisition Service, Kimberly Hancher, the CIO at the EEOC, and Cisco's Greg Carter. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Well, I first kind of want to start off, we can just go right down the line here. Can you talk a little bit about the way you're implementing Next Generation Workspaces at your agency?
Sure. Within GSA, we're all going to be moving from our current offices back into the traditional GSA headquarters on 18th and F. And as we all move there, we're going to be entering a world where none of us really have traditional workspaces anymore. We're going to be hoteling. Many of us will be teleworking. It'll be very different than what we know and do today. So the move back to 18th and F is really driving some innovative ideas around workspaces and how we work together.
Very good. I've been watching what GSA is doing, and it's really very exciting. Patent and Trademark Office and GSA, I think, are leaders in creating workspace of the future. At the EEOC, we've really concentrated mostly on the technology by outfitting every one of our workers with a laptop that they can use for telework or at the office. We also have a loaner program for printers, so when people are traveling or need a printer at their alternate site, they can borrow one. And we're experimenting with bring your own device in order to lower our costs for mobile devices.
And Greg, what are you hearing from your clients?
So one of the things we're hearing is the bring your own device paradigm. A lot of my customers don't really want to implement that type of thing, but we are seeing that experience seems to be the primary driver. Customers that are going to these next generation desktops, they want to have a good experience. They want to have an experience equivalent to what they had with the big desktop. And so my challenge at Cisco is to make sure that my infrastructure can support the experience that the customer is looking for.
And Jonathan and Kim, how are technologies like mobility and virtualization play a role in creating these, workspaces of the future?
Sure. So from a mobility perspective, as we're preparing for this move, we've done surveys of our staff, and we find that staff that are internally mobile, meaning staff that really move about the office during the course of the day, they really benefit from having a really mobile device like a tablet or an iPad or an Android device or something of that nature. It's very easy to stay connected in the building. We'll have Wi-Fi in the new location. We'll be able to move around from meeting to meeting and effectively access our information during the course of the meeting, which makes for a much different and better meeting experience. But everybody's job is different. If you're working on very large spreadsheets in a financial management organization, working on an iPad is going to be a challenging. It would be challenging, and it's about getting the right technology to the person based on their job. So we're looking at that internally and outfitting people with appropriate tools.
Yeah, we've also found that different communities of users have different needs. And we've found that our virtual private network, which is the way that remote workers access the tools that they need, the software that we provide, has really gone up over the last year or so from a very small proportion of our user community to now a large number of users requiring virtual private network access.
And Greg, what are you hearing?
So from a mobility standpoint, we're still sort of going back to what devices can we support for customers to use in order to enable their next generation workspaces. But one of the other things Cisco wants to drive is the whole idea of the next generation workspace, including voice, including video, and including a desktop experience. So we want to give a device that can give you all of those functions without having to sacrifice, once again, the experience, right? Which I think is one of the main drivers of a next generation desktop.
What are your customers and your employees telling you that they want in their next generation workspace?
Flexibility, mobility, many things that we've all heard already. But it's very clear that people want to be able to have the technology that supports their job, and they want to get their job done. So our job in the IT community is to make sure we're getting people the right devices that are appropriate for the work that they do. And I think as you indicated, you don't want to sacrifice, right? So there might be some small trade-offs, but for the most part, if I give you a mobile device and I say this is how you're going to work, I shouldn't slow you down and shouldn't make you less productive. The goal is to improve the way you work in some ways. So that's what people want. They want to be empowered, and they want to be able to telework. They want to be able to quickly access the information that's relevant to their job.
I guess what I've observed is we have a lot of input from the younger workers, the generation that has always had a smartphone as their mobile device, have become very proficient in using it, and they're interested in keeping that device with them and actually using it for work. So we hear that from one part of the community. Now, the more seasoned part of the community, who now are having to be a little bit more mobile, what we hear from them is that on a tablet that is enabled with access, they can do virtually all of their administrative work. And they like the ease of doing it after work hours, after typical work hours, and put their attention during the prime time of the workday on the more complex matters.
How about you, Greg?
Well, I'm sort of tying on what both of you said. We want to be able to accommodate a lot of the people that have the various and sundry devices. We want to be able to accommodate the experience. One thing we found in our experience is not everything is one size, okay? So there are some workers that will need more performance. There are some workers that will need less performance. There are some workers that still want to be tied to a big desktop, some workers that don't. So I need to find a way to give a experience to people depending upon their workload, depending upon what they're doing, without sacrificing performance while making it very mobile and very configurable.
What are the biggest hurdles you guys are seeing?
Certainly cultural. Again, people have different work experiences and they have different expectations. So one size isn't going to fit all. But as we move to really a telework culture, even more so at GSA, we're going to have the opportunity to expose telework and have more people telework. That's going to be a change for managers and for employees. But also I think that there are still a lot of questions around information security, as there are various bring your own device policies out there, and GSA has a pretty good one, but still the questions remain. If you're using your personal device and work data is intermixed with that personal information, are there privacy considerations? If there's an incident, how do we respond in the case of that incident? Is the data really as secure as we think it is? So we're going to learn all these things as a community over time, and I'm sure our policies will be updated and adjusted accordingly. But right now, that's one of the things that I spend a lot of time thinking about.
I think policies are one of the biggest hurdles. We all have pretty much gotten used to a government-provided device, and now that we're discussing a mixture of government-provided devices and some that are personally owned and personally liable devices, it's a little bit different world, and you have to make clear the security requirements and the privacy expectations for both the user and the IT organization as a support entity.
And as you mentioned, security is really, really important to my customers. So they want devices that can use CAT cards, right? They want to be able to use different kinds of encryption technologies. But not only that, and I hate to keep beating this dead horse, but the experience is so important. I've got several customers that have very, very large, multi-thousand desktop implementations out there, and the experience has been their biggest hurdle. Being able to give them streaming video, being able to do Google Earth type things. They all want to have a good experience without sacrificing their productivity. Okay, so security and experience are the two things that I see in my customer spaces.
Great. Well, I want to thank you also so much for sharing your insights with us.
Thanks.
Great.
Thank you very much.
For Jonathan Alboum, Kim Hancher, and Greg Carter, this is David Stegan for FedScoop. Thank you for checking out our panel on future next generation workspaces presented by Cisco, Citrix, and NetApp.